The brilliant novelist Frederick Buechner once wrote about our need for a shepherd. He said it this way: like sheep, we get hungry, and hungry for more than just food. We get thirsty, too, for more than just drink. Our souls get hungry and thirsty. There's nothing that this world has to give us. There's nothing that we have to give to each other even that ever quite fills them. But once in a while, that inner emptiness is filled even so. That is part of what the psalm means by saying that God is like a shepherd. It means that like a shepherd, he feeds us. In fact, he feeds that part of us which is hungriest and most in need of feeding. Buechner is right. There is something in us that is hungry and that is in need of feeding. And in our passage for this Sunday, we hear some of the most comforting words from Jesus himself. Can you guess what it is? It's this. Jesus says, "I am the good shepherd." Just as a quick refresh, much of the Gospel of John is structured around 7 statements that Jesus makes that begins with, "I am." So far we've seen Jesus say that he is the bread of life, he's the light of the world, and he's the door. And now we've come to the 4th statement, where he claims to be the good shepherd. And if we pay attention to the literary patterns that occur in the original language, since this is the middle of all 7 statements, it's very likely that this 4th statement is actually the most important. Let me read some of what Jesus has to say in chapter 10, and just let these words soak into you. Here's how he starts. "The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him. The sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice." Jesus continues, here it is, "I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay my life down for the sheep. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay my life down, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I will lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father." You see, what Jesus says here is clear. He calls his own to himself, and he knows all who are his. He doesn't stop there, though. He also says that he cares for them like a good shepherd cares for his sheep. And he cared for them first by sacrificing himself for them. This is the Jesus of the Gospel of John, the good shepherd whose gentle voice calls all to himself, the one who laid his life down for them. And I think actually the most astounding part of this passage is that Jesus says he cares for those who he calls his own, but even more, he cares for those who aren't his own. He says this, "I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd." Let me end with this. I have a friend who I very much look up to who one day told me on a phone call, "Ben, the simple reason I spend time with God in prayer and in reading scripture is because I need to know his voice. Jesus says that the sheep know their shepherd's voice. And how can we say we follow Jesus if we don't really know his voice?" My friend finished his thought by saying this, "Ben, I know his voice." So as you go about your week, maybe occasionally ask yourself, am I listening to the voice of my good shepherd? And if you are, then ask yourself what he is saying to you and maybe write that down to remind yourself of it. And if you're not listening to the voice of the good shepherd, then maybe ask yourself, how can I start to hear the voice of my good shepherd more? Remember what Buechner wrote. Like a shepherd, he feeds us. He feeds that part of us which is hungriest and most in need of feeding. May you listen to the voice of your good shepherd this week, and may your hungry soul be met and satisfied by him. Go in peace this week.